laban sa mga miyembro ng kapulungan na ito?
Secretary Lorenzana.
Mr. Chairman, again, I say they can sue us in court and we will answer them.
Okay.
Mr.
Representative
Chair.
Elago. Representative
Mr.
Elago, you may continue.
Ang mga naipakita nating Facebook pages kanina na fabricated, no, ang mga statements na kailanman ay hindi po nanggaling sa atin. Walang batayan at walang katotohanan. At ito po ay pinupondohan, no, ng taong bayan sa pamamagitan ng pagpuprevail, no, ng fake news ng DND kasama na ng PCOO. No? Kaya mariin po natin muli, no, kinukundina hindi lamang ang pagpapakalat nito ng fake news, kundi ang pagwawaldas ng pondo at ang kawalan po ng gagawin, no, ang negligence, no, sa nangyayari na ito na AFP na mismo ang naging fake news purveyor.
Representative Elago, you may finally wrap up now. You have already consumed your 3 minutes. Please wrap up.
Mr. Chair, magpapalista na po ako sa second round bago ang turn ko pakibigay na sa committee at sa representasyon na ito ang mga datos kung saang item kumukuha ng pondo para sa digital at social media operations at kung sino-sinong personnel ang kaugnay ng PCOO tungkol sa mga ito. Salamat po.
Thank you very much. The committee secretary is hereby directed to get the data information requested by Representative Sara Elago from the Department of National Defense. Next to be recognized is Representative next to be recognized is Deputy Speaker El Rey Villafuerte.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Gusto ko lang pong tanungin dahil panahon po ng pandemic ngayon and ang ating bayan ay palaging tinatamaan ng kalamidad. Gusto ko lang pong tanungin sa DND, maybe through the OCD, paano po ba tayo nagde-deliver ng mga medical supplies or non-medical supplies sa iba't ibang region, lalo na po dun sa mga geographically isolated and disadvantaged areas po?
Secretary Del.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Pandemic man o hindi pandemic, ang ating ginagamit po, ang ating pagdadala ng mga supplies sa mga areas na separated by water at saka remote areas ay through air, either C-130, tapos pagdating doon sa destination, i-airlift na naman natin ng helicopter. Ngayon, yung mga maaabot lang ng mga barko naman, maliliit na isla, ay naval ships naman ang ating ginagamit, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chair,
Deputy Speaker.
in relation to that, sir, Mr. Chair, ilan pa po ba ang available na C-130 natin ngayon na tumatakbo po? Kasi Philippines is a disaster-prone area eh. So, kagaya sa amin sa Bicol, importante po sa amin yan. Ang tanong ko lang po, Mr. Chair, ilan ba ang available na C-130 ngayon sa ating sa Air Force or sa Armed Forces?
Secretary Lorenzana.
Mr. Chairman, I will allow the Air Force to reply. Thank you.
The Commanding General of the Philippine Air Force, you're recognized.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. Sir, we have a total of 4 C-130s. Only two are operational. The other 2 are undergoing scheduled maintenance. One in Portugal and one in Cebu. So we have 2.
So,
as of the moment.
Deputy Speaker.
So, Chair, kasi we just like to put on record, dalawa lang ang C-130 to cater to 100 million Filipinos and ilan regions ba tayo? Ang gusto kong tanong po, ilan ba talaga sa tingin niyo po ang kailangan para maging sapat po ang pagserbisyo in terms of delivery, lalo na pag may calamity, Mr. Chair?
CG Puff.
Yes, sir. Sir, the President has directed in May this year that the Air Force, the TND and DBM acquire 5 C-130Js, the newer model, And we are of the opinion that this would be enough to serve, especially our mandate, to be able to transport one rapidly deployable battalion at one stroke. And this would also be consistent with the demands or historical demands of, like, for example, Typhoon Yolanda, when we had to carry in personnel, equipment, and supplies, relief supplies. So with the C-130Js, another 5 of that would be enough, sir.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Deputy Speaker.
gusto ko lang po tanungin, yung limang ano ba yan? Yung limang C-130 ba, naka-budget na po yan sa 2021 po?
Is
Yes, sir.
the 5 C-130Js already included in the 2021 budget? That is the question of the Deputy Speaker.
Sir, it is included in the proposed unfunded Tier 2 priority projects of the NDAFP, sir.
So unfunded po. So wala po sa So wala pa po yan sa NEP, National Expenditure Program.
That's right, Mr. Chair.
More or less, magkano po ang kailangan para ma-purchase yung limang yan?
So we need 37 billion, but the proponent is willing to have it, we have an agreement, we can have an agreement with them, financing agreement. What they need is 15% down payment, or about 5.5 billion for the first year, for hopefully for 2021.
So more or less, Mr. Chair, 5.5 lang pala ang kailangan. And,
Yes,
Initially.
Ako lang, initially, kasi multi-year po yan eh. So ako lang kasi, alam mo kasi coming from typhoon-prone region, kailangan talaga. Pero aside from yung C-130, sir, as mentioned by the Secretary of the DND, kailangan rin ng yung chopper, di ba po? Kasi di ba, may mga area naman, hindi naman nakakalanding ang C-130 na mga islands. So kung chopper, are we equipped na ba? Are we fully equipped or kulang pa? Ano pa po ang sitwasyon? Ang ano ko lang po, yung tanong ko in terms of calamity response and mga disaster.
CG Pap, would you answer?
Yes, sir.
Kindly answer.
Yes, sir. So in terms of capital acquisition, we have incoming 16 Blackhawk helicopters. These are bigger types of helicopters. We would need another 8 of this, but in the short term, we can also recover 10 UVs, the old venerable UVs, sir. We have 10 which are sidelined right now because of lack of maintenance funds, and we can recover 10 of them at 1.8 billion.
Deputy Speaker,
Okay,
El Rey.
at least gusto ko lang kasing malaman ng ating mga kasama dahil pag kalamidad or may disaster, malaki po ang natutulong ng Armed Forces, especially ng Air Force, for transporting not only calamity but even non-medical supplies, no? Yung tanong ko lang po, right now po na may kakulangan, ano po yan? Nag-uupa pa po tayo ng ng mga aircraft para maka-service po pag in terms of calamity. Umuupa pa po tayo?
CG Pap or
TNT.
Secretary Lorenzana.
Mr. Chairman, hindi po tayo umuupa dahil maliban sa 4 na C-130 na dalawang tumatakbo, meron din tayong mga mas maliliit na transport plane. Ang tawag po natin dyan, ang pangalan po ay C-295. Meron tayong 4, di ba? Meron tayong 4 niyan na ang kapasidad ay about 50 people. So, pwede na po yun, mga short haul. Meron din tayong in-212, mas maliit pa. Dalawa ba yung in-212 natin? Dalawang in-212. So, ito yung pinagpapalit-palit natin na pinapalipad, Mr. Chairman. Kung malaki yung ating cargo o maraming tao, we use the bigger one, the C-130. But if it is lesser cargo, we also use the smaller one. So, meron po tayo ng masapat na aeroplano.
Sir, pag yung kung nga rin nagkagera sa Middle East, yung C-130 ba pwede bang gamitin yan pang repatriate ng ating mga kababayan? If ever, kung nga rin meron tayong nabiling 5, is it wise na ginagamit ba yan? Pwede bang gamitin o hindi?
Mr. Chairman,
Secretary Lorenzana.
Mr. Chairman, Pwede po, pero kailangan it will be expensive dahil hindi makalipad ng diretso. Kailangan meron siyang 2 stopover bago marating ang Middle East, ganun din pabalik. So, at saka mahal po yung yung gastos kasi maliban pa sa gasolina, pag bumaba ka sa airport, magbabayad ka pa. Ang pinakamaganda pong gagawin natin kung mayroon tayong repatriation na ginawa natin nitong umpisa ng hindi yung pandemic, yung giyera yung giyera ng yung kamuntik na nagkagiyera yung Iraq at saka Iran at saka United States, ay nagpadala tayo ng isang transport na vessel at saka isang escort. Matagal-tagal lang po ang travel, 21 days, kaya lang mas marami naman tayong may sakay at saka mas murang gastos.
Sir, yung
Deputy Speaker.
ang OCD kasi is an attached agency po ng 'di ba, ng Department of National Defense. Nung governor ako kasi, sir, yung local yung calamity fund, yung 70% noon pwedeng gamitin as pre-disaster, ginagamit for pre-positioning and preparedness. Yung tanong ko po, sir, under the NDRIM funds ba, pwede ba kayong under the present condition ba, kung may 20 billion kayo naka-appropriate, allowed ba kayong mag-procure ng pre-positioning or mga pre-disaster procurement? Allowed ba?
Secretary Lorenzana.
Mr. Chairman, may I request the Chief of the OCD to answer?
The Chief of the OCD, you're recognized.
Yusik Halad.
Yusek Halad.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Allowed to a certain extent, like for example, transportation of relief goods in anticipation of an approaching typhoon. Yun lang po ang aming nagagawa.
Hindi, kasi sa local government code, Mr. Chair, you can buy equipment for pre-disaster. Ang tanong ko, would NDRIM under USECALAD and DND consider dito kasi sa Congress we're considering to add as part of the special provision allowing you to do pre-positioning and pre-procurement for pre-disaster. Payag ba kayo dyan? Will that make your job be more effective, Mr. Chair?
Yusek Halad.
Mr. Chair, certainly that will make our job effective, and if we follow the full definition of the NDRIM funds, which is National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Fund. However, meron kasing sinasama dyan palagi sa special provision ng NDRRM funds, which limit our utilization to response and rehabilitation and recovery. Kung mawala yun, then magiging flexible na yung ating utilization ng NDRRM funds.
Kasi those
Deputy Speaker.
yung special provisions, Mr. Chair, can be revised, amended by Congress. So again, just to reiterate, okay ba? Mr. Chair, maybe we can hear so that for the record, maybe we can improve that special provision that they will be allowed to spend the funds for pre-disaster activities over and above yung pre-positioning.
Yusek Halad.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chair, provided lalakihan din yung budget for NDRIM funds kasi marami ring requests for rehabilitation and recovery. So, and like for example, in our experience dito ngayon sa COVID pandemic, marami rin tayong kinuha sa NDRIM funds for augmentation of the quick response fund of various agencies allotted with QRF. So kinakailangan lalakihan din yung NDRIM fund budget kung gagawin nating very flexible ang utilization nito.
Thank you. Ito, last na lang, Mr. Chair.
Deputy Speaker Elry.
Kasi it's my second term as Congress, palagi kong iniisip at kasama ng ating colleagues, yung retirement age ng AFP, 56. Sa ibang bansa, mas bata. Sa iba, mas at a later stage. Ang tanong ko lang siguro as my last question, maybe I can ask Mr. Chair, directed to the AFP Chief of Staff, what are their thoughts on making the retirement age of 56 optional and allowing those who reach 56 to transfer laterally to other government agencies to continue their government service until the mandatory retirement age of 65 years old. What are your thoughts about these proposals na iniisip po ng ating mga kasama dito sa Kongreso?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, Your
Yes,
Honor.
General Gapay.
Yes, Mr. Chair, Your Honor, thank you very much. Magandang hapon po sa ating lahat. Yes, it is 56 years old. It's still a young age for us, and most of us are really productive and could offer a wide range of experience to other agencies as well. So we welcome that proposal of 56 as an optional age of retirement, and wherein military personnel could transfer or do lateral entry to other agencies. So we could offer expertise also to other agencies, Mr. Chair, Your Honor. Then we have some added proposal. We also integrated the tenure, the number of years for certain position and ranks. For example, if you are a unified commander, you are guaranteed of a 3-year tenure. If you are major service commander, chiefs of the Army, Air Force, Navy, another 3-year tenure, and 3-year tenure for the chief of staff. So we also proposed those provisions in the House bill, Your Honor, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. At least that's on record kasi while it's been quite a while that members of Congress are already thinking of these provisions in aid of legislation. So, thank you, Mr. Chair. Maraming salamat sa inyo. Thank you, thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Thank you. Yes, Secretary
ito lang
Lorenzana.
dagdagan yung sinabi ni General Gapay. Meron po kaming ginawang panukalang batas. Yung panukalang batas na yan, nandun na sa Senate at mag-hearing nga sila kami ngayong Huwebes. Hindi ko alam kung kailan dito sa House. Pero ang panukalang batas na ito ay babaguhin namin ng konti yung retirement ng mga officials, AFP officials, lalo-lalo na yung mga top rank, mga general. Para po mapakinabangan naman namin yung mga general ng matagal-tagal. Hindi yung kapapasok pa lang, mag-retire na. Ngayon po, ganyan po nangyayari ngayon. Ang nakikita ng iba, yun lang chief of staff, ang ganon. Pero hindi po. Hanggang sa Brigadier General yan, ganon din ang turnover. Kasi mabilis lang. Kasi nga, pag 56 na aalis na siya So, ang kuwan po namin ay maybe maximum age ng AFP ng 62. Pero yung mga general na yan, na mapapromote ka ng general, magkakaroon ka ng 3 taon sa rangko na yan. Every time you get promoted. Para po ma-stabilize natin yung leadership ng AFP.
So, Mr. Chair,
Yes,
last
Speaker.
na lang, So, sa ibang bansa ba ganito? Alam ko sa US, ganyan po, di ba? Pag na-promote, mayroon fixed term po siya to serve, di ba po?
Opo, Mr. Chairman. Opo.
Meron pa bang ibang bansa, sir, na may gumagawa niyan just for a reference?
Marami, Mr. Chairman. I think Australia, England, UK, even Japan and Korea. Naka-fixed term ng nila. Fixed term nila.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you. Maraming
Thank you
salamat.
very much, Deputy Speaker Villafuerte. Next, the Chair would like to recognize Representative Mark Go. Congressman Mark Go of Baguio. Next, Representative Rosana Vergara.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon.
Yes, please
Secretary.
proceed with your interpellation. You have 3 minutes.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, sir, I would like to thank General Lorenzana for his timely and immediate response to my letter request. Thank you very much, General. It has been resolved. Mr. Chair, I would like to ask the DND what was their initial budget proposal for 2021 as submitted to the DBM? Was it 283 billion, as we see in the presentation?
Secretary Lorenzana.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, 283 billion. 283 billion.
The proposed is 283 billion and given by DBM is Same
283 billion.
For 2020 or 2021?
2021. How much is your proposed and how much was allotted by DBM?
I cannot anymore remember our proposal, Mr. Chairman, but I think our proposal was higher than this, but this is the only one that was that came out with the President's National Expenditure Plan program.
Okay. Congresswoman
Mr. Chair,
Vergara.
I would like to ask, with this reduction, what was the impact of this reduction to the modernization efforts, equipment upgrade, and training of our soldiers? The reduction on the budget, has this adversely affected the DND's capability?
Secretary Lorenzana.
Mr. Chairman, there will be an effect to our modernization program because of this hindi naman reduction, tumaas naman tayo ng konti. But the increases that we asked, that were given, was only enough to fill in some of the pagkukulang natin sa mga salaries, pensions, and a little capital outlay. Now, we are banking on our share in the BCDA for our modernization kasi nakapix po yun nakapeg sa modernization yung
Mr.
funds.
Chair,
Yes, Congresswoman
Mr.
Vergara.
Chair, yes, as I was listening earlier with Vice Chair Biazon, they said that the AFP modernization should have been yielding around 309 billion, but Secretary Lorenzana said sadly they've only been able to collect 50 billion. Did I hear correctly?
Pakiulit po, Mr. Chairman.
Congresswoman Vergara.
Sir, yes, sir. The AFP modernization program, that's a law, said that they should be getting at least 309 billion, but Secretary Lorenzana said that from 2018 to 2020, 49.7 billion has only been realized. Tama po ba yun?
Secretary Lorenzana.
Yes, according to the data I was reading a while ago, Mr. Chairman, that's correct.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chair, I would just like
Yes,
to make
please
a
proceed.
manifestation. Ayon sa ating 1987 Constitution, it says the state shall assign the highest budgetary priority to education. Ang budget po ng education ay 754 billion kumpara sa 283 billion ng Department of National Defense na nabanggit din na kulang yung AFP modernization program, and gusto ko lang pong malaman, palagay po ba ng ating puting secretary na panahon na para tignan natin ang 1987 Constitution dahil nung ito po ay ginawa, wala naman po tayong problema sa West Philippine Sea, yung communist insurgency sa Mindanao, yung ISIS terrorism na ngayon nakikisali ng Abu Sayyaf at Maute at ngayon yung pandemic. Is this something Congress should look at, Mr. Chair?
Thank you very much, Congresswoman Vergara. That was your last question. For the reply, Secretary Lorenzana.
Mr. Chairman, we agree with the observation that there should be some changes now in the 1987 Constitution to cover up some of the new or current development. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Secretary Lorenzana, for that reply. Next, the chair would like to recognize Representative Rufus Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and a pleasant good afternoon to our colleagues and to our guests, the resource person, especially to the illustrious Mindanaonon, the Honorable Secretary of National Defense, Lorenzana. Good afternoon.
Yes,
the
please
first
proceed,
question is
Congressman
directed-
Rodriguez. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We will be following the 3-minute rule. I have short questions. First, to Secretary Lorenzana, thank you very much. You're giving Mindanao a pride that you are our Secretary of National Defense. We would like to ask you, how much is the budget? And what are the infrastructure that will be placed at the Camp Evangelista, Patag, Cagayan de Oro?
Secretary Lorenzana.
Mr. Chairman, we are building only small structures in Patag, in Camp Evangelista, because there is a plan to move 4th Infantry Division headquarters somewhere there near Butuan City, so that it will have better coverage of its area of operation. So as of now, Mr. Chairman, we are not building big structures there in Patag, Cagayan de Oro City. Although we are trying to build new additional hospital buildings to accommodate our troops in the area.
Okay.
Thank you.
Congressman
And,
Rodriguez.
I hope, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, please proceed, Congressman Rodriguez.
Thank you, Secretary, but I would like to register Cagayan de Oro's objection to the transfer. You know, historically, and it is also a strategic position that Cagayan de Oro hosts the 4th Infantry Division. It has been there since after the war. And we therefore request that it stays and that the Secretary continues with the construction of a modern hospital to serve the military in the Region 10 area. Second question, Mr. Chairman. What is the budget for 2021 for the Air Force Base in Lumbia, Cagayan de Oro City, and what are the structures to be established?
Okay. Secretary Lorenzana.
Mr. Chairman, I will request the Commanding General of the Philippine Air Force to reply.
The Commanding General of the Philippine Air Force, you are recognized. You may respond to the query of Congressman Rodriguez.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. For Lumbia development, for 2021, actually for 2020 to be implemented in 2021, sir. It's 1 billion pesos for phase 2 of the Lumbia Airport development for the Air Force base for 15th Strike Wing.
Congressman
Thank
Rodriguez.
you. Thank you. Next question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, please proceed, Congressman Rodriguez.
Will the Secretary be in favor of making sure that the 2 naval bases at the Sangli, Cavite will be retained, and the Chinese construction there will conform to the requirement that the 2 bases, which are strategic to our country, especially in the Manila area, Cavite, Manila area, will be maintained.
Secretary Lorenzana.
Mr. Chairman, it is our intention to retain the naval base in Sangli. In a way, it is it's not part of the airport because the airport will be expanding towards the sea, while the base is inside the bay of Kanyakaw Bay.
Thank you. Next
Thank you.
question, Mr. Chairman.
Congressman Rodriguez.
Will the Secretary endorse to the national government the blacklisting of contractors which are destroying national law of the seas and against our economic zone? The contractors that constructed these military installations inside our economic zone, exclusive economic zone, Mr. Chairman.
Secretary Lorenzana, and I would like to remind Congressman Rodriguez, he has 30 seconds left. Secretary Lorenzana.
Mr. Chairman, I think that is more than academic because the President has already said that these companies can continue doing business in the Philippines, especially the one that will construct the Sangli Airport.
Mr. Chairman, since the Secretary...
Congressman Rodriguez.
Since the Secretary is the head of the national defense and, of course, in charge of protecting the sovereignty of our country, and these contractors build installations that is a threat, that are threats to our national security and our sovereignty, would he not therefore give an advice to the President to blacklist them because they are the ones placing this military against us against us in the West Philippine Sea? But my question will be, he will answer that because I have only 30 seconds and I follow that. My question, last question, the last 15 seconds, is
has the Secretary prohibited the DITO communications to put up towers in the military camps as proposed before in a MOA? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I reserve my right to have a second round, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Congressman Rodriguez. That will be your last question for the first round. For the reply, Secretary Lorenzana.
Mr. Chairman, on the first question recently, just a while ago by the congressman from Cagayan de Oro, I think the advice that we can give maybe to the president is to properly screen these companies before they can conduct business here. But as I said a while ago, I think the president already decided that they can continue the project here. So all we can do is now to be very, very sure that their entry into our territory will not endanger our sovereignty.
Thank you very much, Secretary Lorenzana. Next.
Mr. Chairman, there was a question. Mr. Chairman, there was a last question about DITO communications.
Oh,
Whether they will not be allowed to put towers
Yes.
because they have a Chinese
Secretary
component.
Lorenzana, regarding
Yeah,
the
that was not
query of
answered yet.
Congressman Rodriguez regarding the cell site towers of DITO communication in military camps.
yes, Mr. Chairman. I'm sorry I missed that that question. Yes, they will be allowed on camps that are already also. They have the most camps actually in the Philippines have already cell site towers of the Globe and Smart, and the contract or the memorandum of agreement that I signed, approved between the AFP and DITO is that it will just be limited to those camps as well. I think this is just fair for DITO because they will also be providing signals or telco services in the provinces. And army camps or military camps are all over the country, and they also want to be inside camps for security and protection, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Secretary Lorenzana. Next, I will recognize and
One final point, Mr. Chairman, just one final point.
we
I would
still
just
have
like
a
to-
second round, Congressman Rodriguez.
This will be. I just state that Globe and Telecom are different from DITO because DITO has a 40% Chinese component, Mr. Chairman. That is my point. It's a big difference between Globe and smart cell sites in camps because DITO has 40% Chinese, and of course, we have a conflict with the Chinese. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Congressman Rodriguez. Next, the chair would like to recognize Representative Raul Tupas.
Afternoon po sa lahat, lalong-lalo pa kay Secretary Delphine Lorenzana. I would like to start by manifesting my support to the military and defense establishments dahil kailangan natin ang matatag at malakas po na grupo na yon ng military and defense establishment. Let me address my question to the good secretary because on last year I also commended the high utilization rate of the DND, specifically the significant improvement in the utilization rates of the Office of Secretary and OCD. On average, from 2017 to 2019, the DND was able to obligate annually about 93.9% of its total available appropriation. Utilization rates of the major commands, yung Philippine Army po, Philippine Air Force, Philippine Navy, were generally high and almost close to full utilization during those years. So ako po, kinokomment ko po ang ating Department of National Defense and yung mga major commands. Unahin ko na lang po, yung tanong ko to address to Secretary or to the Chief of Staff, ano pong mga capabilities ang kailangan nating bigyan ng malaking atensyon dahil po nag-expand ang AFP sa maraming role. How do we intend to maximize yung role ng AFP pagdating sa air defense, pagdating sa sustainment ng newly organized units such as the Light Reaction Regiment dahil po in the context na may bagong anti-terror law, ito po ang isa sa mga kailangan na unit. And of course, yung naval capability po natin para ma-address yung problem sa West Philippine Sea. And at the same time, yung bagong concept po na Indo-China po. May we hear from the good secretary?
Secretary Lorenzana.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for that very good observation and commendation. Yes, we need to enable our armed forces to be effective. We need equipment in the Navy will need ships. The Air Force will need more aircraft, as we have discussed earlier, helicopters and C-130. And the ground forces will need fighting equipment, protective equipment, night vision goggles, and air defense. For the air defense, I think the Air Force are lining up some of the equipment that we need to defend our airspace. Yun ang ating ginagawa, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Secretary Lorenzana. For your next question, Congressman Tupas.
Yes, na-mention po ni Secretary Lorenzana na kailangan po yan at yung history po ng mga military units, including yung modern times as well as the living past, kailangan po yung mga units should be able to properly move, shoot, and communicate. Kanina po, I totally agree with the observations ni Speaker Villafuerte regarding yung mga requirements ng Philippine Air Force. Sa akin naman po, if given the chance, ang akin po, dahil galing ako dati as officer ng Philippine Army, late na, nakita ko po noon na medyo may mga concerns pagdating po sa pag-communicate. We may know, Mr. Secretary, kung at this time po, yung gaps na mga na-observe noon, naayos na po ba, lalong-lalo na pag kailangan ng mga ground troops, hindi lang during operations, but as well sa mga
Congressman Tupas, can you please repeat?
areas na prone sa disaster.
Ayan.
Sir, nagtatanong na po ako kung yung communication equipments po natin, lalong-lalo na sa Philippine Army, sa ground troops, kung adequate na po ngayon dahil palagi silang kailangan sa ground, not only for operations, but as well sa mga areas na prone sa disaster. May I know po kung may mga additional already cost estimate na ba o budgetary requirements ang Philippine Army at kung natulungan ba ng ating gobyerno, lalong-lalo po ang House, ang and yung Executive.
Thank you very much, Congressman Tupas, the chairman of the Committee on National Defense. That will be your last question. You have already consumed your 3 minutes, and I'd like to request Secretary Lorenzana.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. May I request the Commanding General of the Philippine Army to reply?
The Commanding General of the Philippine Army, my very good friend, you may reply now.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Chair, Secretary of National Defense, our Chief of Staff, my fellow public servants, good afternoon. I am General Subihana, the Commanding General of the Philippine Army. While we recognize, sir, that communication is a vital equipment for us to accomplish our mission, and while there's a saying that signal did not win a single war, but there was no war that was won without signal. Admittedly, sir, we are low in as far as communication readiness is concerned. I have here figures indicating our readiness in as far as communication is concerned. Check. We have various signal equipment, sir, such as the 100 to 150 watt base radio, the 20 watt mobile radios, and the 10 watts and the 50 watts for our vehicles. Right now, sir, our percentage fill up is on the average is at 50%. And if we are going to quantify the variance, it's a substantial amount of budget that we need, totaling to around 10 billion, sir, to enable our units to effectively communicate and accomplish our mission.
The 10 billion proposal by the CGPA, is it already with the plan of with the upgrading plan of the AFP?
Sir,
Your
with
10 billion proposal, the need for additional 10 billion to enable all our troops in the Philippine Army.
Mr. Chair, with a substantial amount of 10 billion, it cannot be done one time. So that's why we are recommending for for the increase of our communication readiness gradually. We will be submitting our proposal to upgrade our communication capability in a yearly manner.
Okay, thank you very much. Secretary Lorenzana.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. The Army has actually, the Armed Forces actually, the whole, because it procures a lot of small items for the AFP, the GHQ. The Army, specifically the Army, the infantry units, and the Marines have equipment, the small radios, the Harris radio that were procured, I think last year or this year, and it will solve the communication problems between small units. Now, it's not yet enough, Mr. Chairman. That's why we want more to improve our long-distance communications between units, commands, and all those that we need to talk. Now, also, we would like to improve our inter-service communication, meaning Army to Air Force or Navy or vice versa. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Secretary Lorenzana. Thank you very much also the very active, hard-working Congressman Boboy Tupas. Next to be recognized by the chair is Congressman Onyx Crisologo. Congressman Onyx Crisologo. Congressman Mark Go.
Yes, Mr.
Please
Chair. Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to express my appreciation to Secretary Lorenzana for giving us a general overview of the mandate, mission, and trust of the DND for 2021. And I would like to highlight three organizational outcomes that he mentioned. First is the Philippine Army, and it stated in the presentation that the tactical battalions and ready reserve battalions, ang target for 2021 is for 240 for the tactical battalions, and for the reserve, ready reserve battalion is 86. For Philippine Air Force, the organizational outcome, as mentioned, is 173 supportable aircraft. And for the Philippine Navy, there will be the target of 109 of Philippine Navy units. Mr. Chair, I would like to ask Secretary Lorenzana, where are we now against these three organizational outcomes?
Secretary Lorenzana.
Mr. Chairman, may I request the three services to reply to the question, first with the Philippine Navy, then second by the Philippine Army first, the Philippine Navy, and Philippine Air Force. Thank you, sir.
The Commanding General of the Philippine Army, you have the floor.
Mr. Chair, again, good afternoon. Right now, we envision to increase our readiness level among our tactical battalions. So for 2021, for next year, we envision to have 240 tactical battalions on R2 status, meaning it is operationally ready, including the 86 Ready Reserve Battalion. So we have actually three types of tactical units, sir. The combat support, and the combat service support units. Primarily, our effort is directed towards the combat units because these are our frontliners. So we are really giving priorities to these. And with the budget allocated for us, with our proposal, we will be able to achieve that much of battalions at the R2 level, the total of 240 tactical battalions and 86 Ready Reserve battalions.
Thank you
sir.
very much, CGPA. Next, the Flag Officer in Command of the Philippine Navy.
Sir, for the Philippine Navy, for calendar year 2021, we are projecting for sustainment of 32 surface operations, 8 naval air operations, and 34 amphibious operations, and 35 naval special operations. For the force level support services, we are projecting 75 C4 I-STAR information assurance and 62 support operations.
Thank you very much, FOIC of the Philippine Navy. Next, Commanding General of the Philippine Air Force.
Good afternoon, sir, Mr. Chair. For the number of support aircraft to be maintained at 173, this is originally from 154 in 2019. So right now, from 154, we are now 160, and we expect the arrival of 6 more aircraft this month, and another 7 aircraft by the end of this year.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair.
For your next question, Congressman Marco.
Yeah, with the proposed budget, I am very sure that the Department of National Defense will be able to achieve these organizational outcomes as stipulated earlier, Mr. Chair. The regular fund of the DND is 208 billion, and the pension plan is given an allocation of 74 billion. I would like to find out if this includes already the indexation of benefits of the members of the retirees and the veterans, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chairman, yes. Tama po, kasama na dyan yung indexation. Kaya po lumaki yung ating pension allocation every year because it includes already the increase also in the pension of retirees.
So that means po magiging masaya po yung mga retirees natin at saka yung mga veterans po natin. So again, yun lang po ang aking itatanong at sinusuportaan po natin yung budget po ng DND para maging maganda at maayos ang ating bansa at mabigyan ng suporta ang ating mga kababayan sa ganito pong sitwasyon natin. Maraming po salamat at magandang hapon po sa lahat.
Thank you very much. Secretary Lorenzana.
Mr. Chairman, although kasama na sa indexation yung pension, meron pang arrears yung gobyerno, yung increase naming retiree, kasi nag-effect yung pension na bago 2018, pero nagkaroon ng pera May na. So yung merong gap, I think 5 months, January, February, March, April, na hinihintay pa ng mga pensionado. So yung pa ang kulang. Otherwise, tinatanggap na po nila yung indexed pension.
Thank you. Next, thank you also, Congressman Marco. Next, the chair would like to recognize Representative Ron Salo.
Salamat po, Chairman. Chairman, may mga ilang katanungan lang po ako kay Secretary.
Yes, please proceed. You have 3 minutes.
Yes. Maraming salamat po ulit. Itatanong ko lang po kay Secretary, ano po yung greatest, kinukonsider na greatest external internal threats to the security and sovereignty ng Pilipinas ngayon? Yung top 3 po na kinukonsider po ng ating sandatang lakas.
Secretary Lorenzana.
Mr. Chairman, we consider the top 3 as first, the insurgency in the Philippines plus terrorism. Pangalawa, yung ating external threats dyan sa West Philippine Sea. At pangatlo, dahil kami nakikialam din dito, yung the fight against drugs.
Congressman Ronzalo.
Dito po ba sa mga binabanggit po ninyo, Secretary, na mga greatest threats sa security and sovereignty po natin, yung budget po ba ninyo na proposal, dito rin po ba naka-ugma po yun?
Secretary Lorenzana.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, these funds are directed towards these 3 major threats to our security. Thank you po.
Congressman Ronzalo.
Yes, pasensya na po kayo. Medyo hindi ko masyadong narinig. Nonetheless, I'll proceed dun sa next. May mga usap-usapan for the past week, Mr. Chairman, tungkol dito sa revolutionary government. How is the Department of National Defense treating this particular issue?
Secretary Del.
Mr. Chairman, hindi po namin pinapansin yan. We believe that is out of the question. Hindi na namin sinusuportahan na Mr. Chairman.
Maraming salamat po, Secretary, sa inyo pong assurance po sa mga kababayan po natin. Yun lang po, Mr. Chair. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you very much, Congressman Ronzalo. The chair would like to call again Congressman Onyx Crisologo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, thank you. First of all, I would like to manifest my support for the passing of the D&D budget, which is critical to our national security. This is to ensure the safety and protection of the Filipino people in Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. But Mr. Chairman, may I propound questions to our VMMC Director, Ms. Director Chong, if he's still here in Zoom?
Yes, please proceed, Congressman Crisologo.
Thank you, Chairman. This is a local of concern, Mr. Chairman. I had meetings earlier last year with Director Chong. Of course, VMMC is one of the most responsive hospitals that need upgrading. I would just like to ask, ano po yung status ng retrofitting ng kanilang hospitals, if it has been given the go signal by DND, dahil kailangan ho nila yan. And number 2, I would like to thank VMMC dahil magpo-proceed na po yata ang paggawa ng 4-story or 5-story na disaster building or evacuation center, which would cater 5 barangays near VMMC, which is located in my district, namely Bahay Toro, Pag-asa, Project 6, and Bago Bantay. So tatanungin ko lang po, Mr. Chairman, kay Director Chong, kung lahat po ba ng nabanggit ko ay matutuloy po itong dadating na taon o sa susunod na taon.
The chair would like to recognize Director Chong, VMMC.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. Yes, Your Honor. Yung pong mga projects ng DPWH ay ongoing po yung plans. Mukhang matutuloy ho naman. Our last meeting was last week. They presented the retrofitting projects. But this will have to be approved by our Secretary of National Defense before any activity can be pursued.
Second, yung pong first plan, yung evacuation center po, nag-uumpisa na po sa likod ng malapit po sa tennis court ng hospital sa likod. Hopefully it will be completed in a few months. So starting na po.
Thank you. To you, Mr. Chairman.
Proceed to your next question, Congressman Crisologo.
Since nandito na rin po ang ating Secretary of DND, sabi po ni Director Chong, kailangan ho ng go signal ng ating DND Secretary. Can we get a commitment from our Secretary na mare-retrofit na ho yung ating hospital sa BMMC, which I know is needed by the BMMC. Kailangan ho ng mga veterano natin. Napakaganda po ng ating hospital, maganda ang service po nila. Can we get a commitment from our Secretary? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Secretary Lorenzana.
Mr. Chairman, I support fully the retrofitting of the Veterans Hospital. Alam po ninyo, ako ay veterano rin na gumagamit yan, nakikinabang din ako. At saka napakarami pang mga veterano. Hindi lang po yun ang gusto namin mangyari sana, ay madagdagan pa ng mga pasilidad yung Veterans Hospital because hindi lang po veteranong ang ginagamot yan, kundi pati yung mga nakapaligid na mamamayan sa Quezon City. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you,
Chairman.
Secretary.
And just to close, Mr. Chairman, so I would like to thank Secretary Lorenzana for that statement. In fact, when I was a councilor for 3 terms, I was one of those who insisted nung time na gusto pong tanggalin ng VMMC para i-develop na commercial, and I was very insistent that this remain dahil malaki po ang contribution nito sa government at sa ating mga veterano. So thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the time.
Thank you very much, Congressman Onyx Crisologo. Next is Vice Chairman Tejada, but Vice Chairman Pingping Tejada will instead forward his concerns to the Chairman of the Committee on Appropriations, Eric Yap, and hopefully his concerns will be addressed accordingly by the Chairman of the Committee on Appropriations. Thank you very much, Vice Chairman Jose Pingping Tejada. Next on the list, the Chair would like to recognize my neighbor, my Deputy Speaker, Muji Bataman. Deputy Speaker Ataman, my neighbor, are you still there? Wala si DS Mujib Ataman. Next.
Ikaw magbabasa niya.
Siya daw.
Ipapasahin sa manifestation.
May audio si DS Mujib.
Meron? We cannot hear him here at the Nograles Hall. Comsec, can we ask our technical staff to check on the audio? I think the members attending the Zoom meeting can hear DS Mujib Ataman, but we cannot hear him here at Nograles Hall. Can you? Okay, while waiting for Deputy Speaker Ataman, the Chair would like to give time to Vice Chairman Ted Haresco.
Thank you.
For a very, very short
manifestation, Mr. Speaker, for the sponsor, Congressman Kuya Alvarado, our very hardworking congressman, for his consideration, and for the Speaker's consideration as the DND sponsor. There is I would like to manifest the 8.7 billion request for consideration by the DND Secretary Lorenzana, of which 1.2 billion is for the Philippine Army and 5.5 billion is for the Philippine Armed Forces, Mr. Chair. Particularly, Mr. Chair, the Veterans Memorial Hospital, 425 million, and the drugs and medicine for the Veterans Hospital. And what DS Elray was speaking earlier, for the record, Mr. Chair, the increase in the quarterly release of the combat expenses from 100,000 to 200,000 pesos to enable the tactical units to have a greater flexibility. Number two, the adoption of the current GAA special provision on the Quick Response Fund to include the prepositioning of not only goods and equipment but also emergency response units. And number three, Mr. Chair, the classification of the AFP modernization program and its program allocation as a special purpose fund to make it distinct and a separate budget item from the regular appropriations. That's all, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vice Chair Haresco, for that very short manifestation. Next, the Chair would just want to read a couple of manifestations from the members of the House attending via Zoom. For Representative Bravo is requesting for data on the Philippine Army, additional CAFGU personnel for the 1st District of Masbate. The Chair would like to recognize, the Chair would like to request the Department of National Defense the information and data as requested by Congressman Bravo. Next, manifestation of Representative Tyrone Agabas. His manifestation, this representation in behalf of the 6th District of Pangasinan manifest support to any move increasing the budget of the DND with the end in view of strengthening our AFP capability for a secured and protected territorial waters. Thank you very much, Congressman Tyrone Agabas. Next, we would like to go on, go back. Is he already there?
Mr. Chairman,
Deputy Speaker Hataman.
since this is the time of manifestations, may I just make a 30-second manifestation?
29 seconds.
29
Yes, you
seconds.
may proceed, Congressman Michael Defensor. I'll give you 35 seconds.
I'll even make it 25, Mr. Chair. Thank you so much. I'd just like to congratulate my good friend, Lieutenant General Gilbert Gapay, for the record, as the new Chief of Staff. I knew him even before he became head of the Army, and I'd like to congratulate him and also support the budget of the Department of National Defense under Secretary Delphine Lorenzana. 15 seconds, Mr. Chairman. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you very much, the very hard-working Congressman Michael Defensor. Next, my neighbor, Basilan, Congressman Ataman. Wala na. This is a Deputy Speaker Mujib Ataman. Maybe he's across the Basilan Strait. Wala ba? Maybe this is the same situation yung with Sara Elago that Congressman Hataman, Deputy Speaker, you may only, if you want, you can connect with us via audio only. Sometimes if the network is so slow and you use video, it will not connect that much with the equipment here in the house. So I advise for those members who are having technical difficulty, please connect via audio only. Next, for our second round, Representative Carlos Zarate.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. How's my audio, Mr. Chair?
Loud and clear, please proceed. Representative Zarate.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll just proceed with my remaining questions related to my earlier interpellation. May I proceed, Mr. Chair? Hello, Mr. Chair?
Yes, please proceed.
Okay, thank you. Earlier, I asked questions tungkol doon sa AFP modernization program. No? At sinabi nga ni Secretary Lorenzana na isa sa dahilan bakit ang laki ng kanilang next year, for example, nagre-request sila ng 15 billion for repairs and maintenance ay dahil ang DND is kabahagi ng kanilang procurement ay mga second hand at mga lumang mga equipment, no, and even surplus, no. Mr. Chair, ayon doon sa provision ng AFP Modernization Program, no, sa batas, dapat ihinto nila itong ganitong kalakaran, no, dahil malinaw doon na kailangan ang bilhin nila ay mga bagong equipment, no, para hindi rin tayo taon-taon nag-allocate ng 15 ng malaki, no. So ang next ko na tanong dyan, Mr. Chair, ang DND is required to submit an annual report on the modernization program. But I think as I scanned the website of the DND, there seems to be no report existing on their website, Mr. Chair. May I get a response?
Secretary Lorenzana.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Doon po sa una, yung second hand na nakukuha natin, hindi po yan charge sa modernization, kundi sa iba po yan kasi we're just trying to take advantage of the excess defense articles given by other countries na kakamura naman tayo at maganda pa naman yun tulad ng mga barko na galing sa Korea, ang barko at aeroplano galing sa US. Meron pa nga tayong nabili galing sa Japan. Pero yung pong ating modernization ay panay brand new po yan lahat. So, henceforth, walang magagamit na modernization fund na pambili ng second-hand equipment. Doon po sa annual report ng modernization program, we will submit immediately, Mr. Chairman, kung wala sa aming website dahil alam ko nagkasabit kami regularly. So, if not, we will post in our website and also submit to the House the update of our modernization program up to this date. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Secretary Lorenzana. Please continue with your next question, Congressman Zarate.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My next question related to that. Was there ever an oversight committee hearing related to the AFP modernization program, Mr. Chair, considering that we are already in the second horizon and the second horizon will be finished supposedly by 2022? Secretary, if there was such an oversight hearing, can we get a copy of that, the report of that committee hearing, Mr. Chair?
Mr. Chairman, I'm not aware of any oversight hearing that were conducted since I became the Secretary of Defense.
In that case, Mr. Chair, I think there is a need, no, for Congress, if I may suggest, to call for an oversight hearing because nasa second horizon na ito, napakalaki po ng ginugugol natin dito sa AFP modernization program, no? And every year, gaya ng nabanggit ko, isa ito sa pinakamalaking pinaglalaanan natin ng budget, no? And it is very important, I think, that an oversight meeting will be called by Congress, no? It should be conducted before we continue to consider funding, no, the AFP modernization program, especially leading towards the third horizon. Now, my next line of questions, Mr. Chair, is related doon sa tanong na tinatanong ko naman din every budget, no? Itong ating defense dyan sa West Philippine Sea. May I ask the Defense Department, no, on these recent incursions of the Chinese vessels in the West Philippine Sea that again, Mr. Chair, put into question, no, yung ating capability of how we defend our territories. And not only that, if I may also say, Mr. Chair, no, ano rin ang reaksyon ng Defense Department dahil nitong nakaraan, parang nagkakaroon ng girian yung dalawang malalaking bansa dyan, no, ang US, in the exercise of their so-called freedom of navigation operations, ay nagpapadala din ng kanilang mga barkong pangyera dyan sa contested areas na yan, Mr. Chair.
Secretary Lorenzana.
Mr. Chairman, diyan po sa West Philippine Sea ay tulad ng nabanggit ko kanina, ay patuloy ang ating pagpatrolya dyan. Nabanggit ko rin kanina na hindi sapat yung ating mga kagamitan, mga barko at aeroplano na na ma-cover natin yung buong area. But we always go there and check kung mayroong mga incursion yung mga Chinese, and if they are making incursion to our EAZ, we file diplomatic protest. Yun lang po ang magagawa natin ngayon dahil wala pa tayong mga kagamitan panghaharap sa kanila kung sakasakali man. Ngayon, yung girian ng mga dalawang superpower diyan sa West Philippine Sea ay ayaw po namin makialam diyan dahil ito ay labanan ng mga higante at ayaw nating madawit tayo sa kanilang conflict kung magkakaroon man ng conflict. Ngayon, sa kanila po yon, it's part of their superpower rivalries in the South China Sea. And as I said, let them do their job. Huwag lang tayo makialam dahil tayo po nasa gitna. We are at the center of this area. At pagka nadawit tayo dyan, ay tayo ang magiging battlefield ng dalawang yan. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Secretary Lorenzana.
Thank you, Mr.
For your
Chair.
last question, Congressman Zarate, please proceed with
Yes,
your last
thank you,
question.
Mr. Chair. Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Kahit po sinabi ng kalihim na huwag po tayong makialam, ay talaga hong sangkot na ang Pilipinas dyan, no? Sa nagbabangga ang dalawang bansang yan. No? Una, sa panig ng Amerika, meron silang mga dito sa Pilipinas, no? Dahil sa ating mga tratado sa kanila, yung Visiting Forces Agreement, yung EDCA at iba pa, ay meron silang mga presence dito sa ating bansa. Ano? Samantalang ito namang China, no? Dahil nga nag-pivot to China ang foreign policy ng present administration, kaya napakalaki ng impluensya nila ngayon dito sa ating bansa. So yun po ang nakikita natin ngayon na Mr. Chair, no? Na dahil nga parang namamangka tayo sa dalawang ilog, ay talagang hindi lang tayo maiipit sa dalawang nag-uumpugang bato, ay talagang tayo ang magiging kawawa nito at the end, Mr. Chair, no? Because of this so-called foreign policy now of the administration, no? Na sala sa lamig, sala sa init, Mr. Chair, no? So, for my final question, probably, Mr. Chair, no? The so-called minimum credible defense posture by the Defense Department, no? That matagal na nilang sinasabi na makakamit nila as far back as 2014 ay sinabi na nila ito. But again, we are now nandun na tayo sa second horizon ng kanilang AFP modernization program. It appears that this this minimum credible defense posture as far as for example in the defense of our territories dyan sa West Philippine Sea, hindi pa rin nangyayari, Mr. Chair. May we get a reaction from the Secretary?
Thank you very much, Congressman Zarate. That will be your last question. The response, Secretary Lorenzana.
Mr. Chairman, kung maalala po ninyo, ang ating modernization program ay nag-umpisa noong 1995, pero wala pang nangyari at nagkaroon ng revised modernization program na na-effect nung about 7 years ago. At tama po yung sinabi na nasa second horizon na tayo, pero yung pong first horizon na hindi naman sapat yung naibigay na pera sa AFP to really develop our minimum credible defense posture. So umasa po kami ngayon na sa timpo sana ni President Duterte ay magkaroon man lang kami ng enough to fill in the gap that we want to fill in this this second horizon to achieve this credible defense posture, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr.
Thank you very much, Secretary Lorenzana. Next, the Chair would like to recognize the Senior Deputy Majority Leader, Boying Remulla.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yung unang tanong ko lang ho, yung sa self-reliance program natin, kung ano ho ang status nito at anong kinakailangan para umandar po at umusad yung ating self-reliance program.
Secretary Lorenzana.
Mr. Chairman, we have several proposals on how to improve our in-country capability to produce our own defense equipment. yung pong ating government arsenal dyan sa Bataan, ay underutilized po yan. Ang ginagawa lang natin dyan ay mga bala ng small arms. It is about 250 hectares na pwede natin gawing magiging industrial complex for defense equipment. At napakarami pong gustong mag-relocate dyan. Kung magkaroon lang ito ng katuparan yung panukalang batas na sinusulong natin para magkaroon ng incentives yung mga local companies or even foreign companies na gustong pumunta rito para maggawa ng mga equipment. Sa katunayan po, Mr. Chairman, meron lang dalawang Korean companies dyan. Yung isa gumagawa ng magazines, yung isa naman gumagawa ng protective equipment. Na hindi na nila hinintay yung incentive na makukuha. Punta na sila rito dahil gusto na nilang to cater to this market, especially here in Southeast Asia. Ngayon, ito po, sa banda po ng paggawa ng barko, ay capable na tayo. Meron na tayo capability. Gumagawa na lang barko yung mga shipyard dyan sa Nabutas. Meron din tayong gumagawa ng barko doon, mga barko at mga malalaki at sa Cebu at sa Leyte din. So, as far as, for me, as far as shipbuilding is concerned, I think we are already there. All we have to do is when we buy ships, especially within the capability, we will utilize our own in-country capability. Sa Air Force naman po ay wala pa tayong capability niyan, kundi mag-repair lang tayo. Even now, we are improving our repair and maintenance capabilities to service our aircraft here, Air Force and civilian. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. SDML?
Yung ano lang po, yung isang tanong ko na lang po is about yung ating mga Filipino companies that can supply the AFP with their needs. Parang hindi ho sila nabibigyan ng equal playing field traditionally. Ngayon marami na ho tayong magagaling na kumpanya sa Pilipinas na mahusay na rin sila in the field of firearms, field of small arms, sabihin natin, from Cebu to Manila, to Marikina, to Cavite, to Parañaque. Marami ako nakikita magagandang mga kumpanya. Are we already adopting a policy of leveling the playing field so that Filipino companies can really compete with the other suppliers? Kasi madalas po, the merchants of war abroad will bring the officers abroad. Ngayon naman, wala namang abroad na. Siguro naman, pwede na i-level ang playing field para yung mga Pilipino naman ay magkaroon naman ng tsansa na mag-improve rin yung ating yung ating capability as a country to produce the arms that we need to defend our country.
Secretary Lorenzano.
Mr. Chairman, napakaganda pong puna yun or observation dahil yung ating procurement law, 9184 ba yun? Is medyo dihado yung ating mga local manufacturers. Ang isang kondo na nireklamo sa akin ng mga local manufacturers that pagka tayo ay mag-umorder ng malalaking volume ng bala, like 5 million, yung local, kailangan may pakita nila na sila ay nakapag-deliver na ng minsanan na 5 million. Ay, hindi po nila kaya. So, dahil doon sa batas na yon, ay we end up buying from abroad. And that is what I've discussed this with former Speaker Alvarez kung paano natin baguhin yan to also give them a chance, kahit na level playing fields lang. Sa ibang bansa nga, kinikilingan pa nila yung local nila. They buy the local first. Kukuha muna sila they will source in country. If it is available, then they buy only when the local companies cannot supply bago sila pumunta sa labas.
So are you suggesting, Mr. Secretary, that we amend the law, RA 9184, so that we can clarify our policy on local suppliers?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I recommend that. We'll revisit the procurement law and make it more responsive to what's happening now.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Senior Deputy Majority Leader Boying Remulla. Isa pa, Mr. Secretary, I noted, other big countries, when they buy something, let's say whether it is a ship or an aircraft, they request the manufacturing company overseas to assemble it or manufacture it to the country who is buying the aircraft or the vessel or the boat or sometimes the submarine. So in that way, nade-develop na yung mga tao doon sa bansa nila para matuto how more or less to construct yung equipment. So I think this is being done by other countries, whether it is whether they are buying a ship, an aircraft, or whatever needs that their defense sector, the country might need. So I think this is also one that we should explore into. When we buy, we ask that company from abroad, can you manufacture or can you assemble or construct it here in the Philippines? Also to give employment to our workforce. Of course, the other things like battle management, combat management system is another thing. But pero yung basic mismo, yung ship pati yung aircraft. So thank you. I share the same sentiment of the Senior Deputy Majority Leader from Cavite.
Mr. Chairman, lagdag lang po. Ginawa na po natin yung in-country, yung part ng order natin. Yung impact fast boat, hindi ito, maliit lang ito, hindi masyado malaki. And part of the order was made here in Subic. Ngayon, mayroon tayong inaayos ngayong kontrata with the Australian company Austal, 5 OPVs or offshore patrol vessels na gagawin lahat dito sa Cebu at mayroon pang financing tayo makukuha sa kanila. So yun po ang ating ngayon. So henceforth, we will ensure that kung dalawa yan, isa dito, isa doon para gumaling naman yung ating technology to produce this equipment, Mr. Chairman.
Good to hear that, Mr. Secretary. Next, thank you very much, SDML. Next, the Chair would like to recognize again the Deputy Speaker, Mujib Hataman. Congressman Mujib Hataman.
He can be heard on sa Zoom.
Congressman, Deputy Speaker Mujib Hataman. We'll call you. The chair will call you back again, but later I would first recognize. Next is Representative Franz Castro.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair. Follow up lang ito, Mr. Chair, doon sa sinasabi nating para military. So ito po ba yung CAFGU? Yung labas po dun sa mga personnel na mga military, ay ito yung tinatawag naming paralegal, ay paramilitary, or sinasabi ninyo kanina, CAFGU. Ilan po ba ito, Mr. Chair?
Mr. Chairman, we have about 68,000 CAFGUs distributed all over the country.
So ito po ba ay alimbawa po sa accountability o human rights violations, covered po ba ito ng ating mga batas at mga guidelines po sa security forces?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, they're covered by the military justice system.
So, meron po tayong mga guidelines diyan dun sa kanilang So, pwede pong mag-submit na lang po ang...
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, meron tayong guidelines dito kung ano yung umiiral na guideline para sa mga regular troops, ayun din sa mga CAFGU. At pwede po kayo mag-submit sa amin ng mga report at they will be punished according to our military justice system.
Opo, kasi yung sinasabi natin,
Yes,
Mr. Chair, kanina na mga paramilitary o yung mga sinasabi natin o part din ng CAFGU o may tinatawag din silang barangay something meron din parang barangay military. So yun po yung mga tinutukoy namin yung sa mga nag-human rights violations. But of course, Mr. Chair, nagagamit din ito nakikita natin, nagagamit din ito ng mga militar para doon sa human rights violations sa mga tao. Susunod po, Mr. Chair, last na to, no? hindi ko natanong to kay Chief of Staff, Lieutenant Colonel Gapay. Meron kayong statement about regulating social media. So hindi ko narinig yung explanation niyo dito. Bakit niyo nasabi naman yun na gagamitin niyo yung social media to regulate? Di po ba to paglabag, Mr. Chair, doon sa right to expression, freedom of speech, etc. At pangalawang question ko, ito po ba i-include ninyo doon sa IRR ng anti-terrorism law ninyo po? Itong pag-regulate ng mga social media ng netizens.
The Chair would like to recognize the Chief of Staff of the Armed Forces of the Philippines.
Yes, Mr. Chair, Your Honor. As a backgrounder, ma'am, we were asked to give some inputs on the IRR, and it was premised on our experience on how the global terror network is capitalizing and exploiting social media in the furtherance and promoting terrorism nationwide. And we have experienced this, in our long experience in combating terrorism. Nakita rin po namin ito, lalong-lalo na sa Marawi, kung saan through social media nagre-recruit itong mga grupong ito. They're able to generate some funding, resource generation, doon din ginagawa, planning of terroristic attacks, doon din ginagawa sa social media. At lalong-lalo na, they radicalize unwary persons, lalong-lalo na yung mga kabataan natin through the social media. Kaya po, naisip po namin na kung pwede nating i-regulate, control itong social media. Hindi naman po yung gumagamit, not the social media users, but the social media platforms po. Meaning, yung pong recommendation namin is not in any way intended to curtail yung ating freedom of expression as guaranteed in the Constitution. But on the contrary, yan po ang trabaho namin, protektahan ang bawat isa sa atin, bawat mamamayang Pilipino from this exploitation using the social media, lalo na po sa parte ng terrorism. So, even yung isang expert po sa terrorism, si Professor Rohmann has really confirmed that indeed the global terror network is really in the net, particularly sa dark web po. So, ang panawagan po namin ay para sa mga social media platforms, itong mga service providers kagaya ng Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, na if they could regulate and itong mga pag-upload ng yung content na naghihikaya at nagpo-promote ng terrorism, baka pwede na lang i-block or curtail ito. At and lately, may development na po dito. They have banded themselves together and formed itong global internet forum to combat terrorism. Ito po yung nagbuklod-buklod po itong Facebook, YouTube to really come up with algorithms sa mga system nila detecting itong mga terrorism-related content. At doon po, nasasala na nila at nakikita nila kung saan nanggagaling. And usually, these are the accounts being used by the terror groups. So with that, mapangalagaan po natin yung mga unwary na kabataan natin na nagiging, sila po ang nabibiktima rito. Hindi nila alam na nire-recruit na sila, then nire-radicalize na sila. And worse, baka they're being groomed to be suicide bombers. Just like what happened sa ibang bansa po. Just like what happened in the United States, in the UK, and even in Africa, wherein yung mga lone wolf attacks po, kung saan yung mga nag-open shooting sa isang supermarket, sa isang eskwelahan, perpetrated by single persons ito po. Nung tinignan nila yung social media accounts itong mga taong ito, ayun po, nakita nila na doon sila na-recruit, doon sila na-radicalize, at doon po pinano itong mga violent attacks na ito. Kaya ito po yung aming intent dito. It's not in any way intended to curtail our freedom, but rather to protect ang ating mga kababayan, lalo na po yung mga kabataan natin, from itong mga gawaing ito ng global terror groups. Lalong-lalo na po rito, affiliated sila. May mga local terrorist groups na kung saan affiliated po itong ISIS. So ito po yung ating binabantayan and talagang
So ilalagay niyo po yan
Yes,
dun sa
Congresswoman Castro.
IRR ng Mr. Chair. So ilalagay po Mr. Chair nila ito doon sa IRR ng anti-terrorism law.
Mr. Chairman,
Kasi
no, we
paano
will not.
natin madi-differentiate yung sinasabi nating pagrespeto doon sa freedom of expression and speech, doon sa sinasabi ninyo na mga platform na yan, at ito ba ilalagay natin sa IRR na yung mga sinasabi ninyong mga website, yung dark web ay paano po yung mangyayari doon? Ilalagay natin mismo doon sa IRR. Specify natin.
Secretary
Mr.
Lorenzana.
Chairman, hindi pa natin ilalagay yun sa IRR. Kung ano yung nakalagay doon sa batas, ayun lang natin susundin. Hindi naman nakalagay sa batas na i-regulate natin ng social media or whatever. Thank you.
Okay.
So sige lang po, gusto lang ma-assure no yung ating mga kababayan na ginagamit kasi naman itong Facebook or any other platform, social media for their freedom of expression and speech. Kaya nangangamba po yung mga users na baka magamit. Kasi tingnan niyo yung PNP, gagamitin na nila yung Facebook daw sa paghanap ng magbabiolate ng quarantine, Mr. Chair. Kaya tayo, parang kabit-kabit yun, yung mga ganong Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Representative Franz Castro. Next.
Mr. Chair, Congressman Hataman here, Mr. Chair.
Yes, I'm about to call you. Good, you're already online. So, the chair now recognizes Congressman Mujib Hataman. You have 3 minutes. Please proceed.
Magandang hapon po. SND, magandang hapon po. Konting tanong lang to. Nung DBCC ho, merong presentation yung DBM. Ito yung sa NTF LCAC. Focus ito sa sa local communists. Pwedeng matanong ko kung meron ding item against, halimbawa, program against terrorism.
Secretary Lorenzana.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, meron po. Meron kaming itinatag na hindi ILCAC kundi ILAC kasi wala namang communist diyan sa diyan sa Barm area, but only terrorism. So we have also people managing this task force, Mr. Chairman, na nagko-cover dito sa mga probinsya o sakop ng Barm.
Mr. Chair.
Sir, Representative Hataman, please proceed.
Yes. Sir, magkano ho yung amount allocated para sa ELAC? Kasi dito ho sa LCAC, based sa presentation ng DBM during the DBCC, umabot ho ng 19.13 billion. Tapos sa ELAC ho, magkano?
Secretary Lorenzana.
Mr. Chairman, kasama na po yung ILAC dyan. Pero yung pong ni-request namin na budget na 19 billion, ito po yung ating ibubuhos na development projects doon sa mga cleared barangay all over the country. Kasama rito yung BARM. So, hindi po natin alam kung magkano ito, no specific amount, but I'm sure that some of the money of this, some of the 19 billion will be also used in the Barm area because nakikita po natin talagang kailangan din ng Barm area ng development projects.
Kasi sa LGS po pinukuha yung 16.B. Tapos so ang campaign ho natin ngayon, sir, nakapokus na ho sa barangay.
Secretary Lorenzana.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, i-focus natin sa barangay kasi marami pang, sabi ko kanina, marami na neglected na barangay and we would like to also bring up the infrastructures in the barangays, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you.
So far, sir, ilang barangays ang target natin, halimbawa doon sa terrorist infiltrated area?
Yung number na sinabi ni Secretary Espiron, I think sometime last year when we were preparing for the budget is umaabot ng something like 300 plus barangays, na cleared barangays. That was last year, plus another 150 or more this year. So yun ang pinaghandaan natin, Mr. Chairman. Now we have sufficient money to pour into these barangays.
So yung 300 plus, sir, ito yung... Mr. Chair.
Yes, please proceed for your next question.
Okay. Sir, itong 300 plus sa buong BARM lang ito o kasama na yung buong, entire country?
Mr. Chairman, entire country po yun. Entire country.
Yung 300 plus. Yeah.
Representative Ataman.
Yes, last point, Mr. Chair. Sa AFP side na to, tanong ko lang, halimbawa dito sa case ng Sulu pati 2nd District ng Maguindanao kung saan dominated ng DIFF and of course dominated ng Abu Sayyaf yung sa Sulu. Meron ba tayong timeline kung kailan matatapos yung problema laban sa BIFF at sa Abu Sayyaf?
The Chief of Staff of the Armed Forces of the Philippines.
Sir, as far as, Mr. Chair, Your Honor, as far as yung Abu Sayyaf group, sir, we are striving to really end it this year. And Al-Khilafa Pilipinas and meron din po sa aside from BIFF, meron pa rin yung Turaife group dito sa Maguindanao. So lahat po ito are being termed as local terrorist groups. And right now our focus is against the Abu Sayyaf group operating in Basilan and Sulu. And ang target po namin dyan is we will endeavor to really degrade them significantly by the end of the year. But the entire local terrorist groups would be by 2022, Your Honor. Mr. Chair.
Yes, Representative Ataman, you still have 1 minute.
Sir, I'm sure sa Basilan patapos na to, no? Pero ang ano ko lang, pinaka-challenging dito yung 2nd District. Halimbawa, kung saan nag-ooperate yung BIFF. And at the same time, kung saan din nag-ooperate ang Abu Sayyaf. And I hope, no, ma-realize yung campaign natin against terrorism. Pero ang isang tanong ko lang, gaano tayo ka-infiltrated ng foreign terrorists dito sa ating bansa?
Mr. Chair, Your Honor.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, Your
General
Honor.
Gapay.
Right now, we have identified 8 foreign terrorists hiding in our country and are integrated in the local terrorist groups faction, particularly Abu Sayyaf, sir. And there are 29 on watch list. We are still confirming this, verifying that information. So right now, sir, ganon ang number ng foreign terrorists which we are monitoring. And Mr. Chair, Your Honor, we are addressing, or our counterterrorism strategy is one of that is holistic and comprehensive. That's why not only these foreign terrorist fighters, so to speak, but we would also want to really enhance yung maritime security natin, because these foreign terrorists were able to sneak in our country through the back doors, which is very porous. That's why we have to strengthen that, and we're coordinating and operating with concerned government agencies here, and likewise yung maybe some would be coming in through our airports and seaports using different identities. So nagko-coordinate din po kami sa Bureau of Immigration. So that's one aspect we want to really address. And likewise yung radicalization sir ng particularly of the youth. That's why we're coordinating with DepEd naman to really strengthen our efforts in preventing and countering violent extremism. Your Honor, Mr. Chair.
One last point, Mr. Chair.
Yes, that will be, please make your last question, Representative Bataman.
Sir, paano natin minomobilize yung local government pagdating sa anti-terrorism campaign? Kasi kaya ko lang nire-raise to, kasi this was effective in fucking Basilan. I just don't know in other areas and how receptive they are in the campaign against terrorism.
Right now, sir, Mr. Chair, Your Honor, right now we are, just like what the Secretary of National Defense has said, we adopted a similar framework against the communist terrorist group, wherein we now form this task force to end local armed conflict. So this is now addressed against the local terrorist groups operating in the south, particularly in Mindanao. And in that forum or committee or council, nandito po represented yung mga different agencies to include yung mga LGUs natin. Parang POC rin to, parang Peace and Order Council, wherein all sectors, all agencies are represented, so that all the dimensions of the problem on terrorism will be covered. So we recognize really the big role of the LGUs when it comes to our efforts against terrorism, Your Honor, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, General Gapay. Thank you very much also, Deputy Speaker Mujib Hataman. Next, the Chair would like to recognize from the minority Representative Euphemia Kulyamat. Representative Euphemia Kulyamat.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Please proceed now. You have 3 minutes.
Mr. Chair, nais ko lang pong bigyang lilaw, no, ang sagot po ni Secretary Lorenzana kanina, hinggil doon sa sinabi niya na pumayag yung mga komunidad doon sa pira nila doon sa komunidad. At saka bago po, nais ko pong di ba i-share yung hiningi kanina na storya hinggil doon sa mga leader na pinatay doon sa amin harapan mismo, at makikita ninyo kung gaano ito ka-brutal, Mr. Chair, per day.
Representative Kulyamat, nasa kwan po tayo, budget briefing, and we would like to request that all manifestation or any queries should directly be related to the budget proposal of the Department of National Defense, the AFP, for 2021. Yung iba pong mga concern, probably you can take it with the appropriate committee because we are pressed for time, so we would like to concentrate more on the budget proposal ng DND for 2021.
Okay. Salamat, maraming salamat, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, sinabi lang po namin ito ng mga kaso, ang okupasyon ng militar sa mga katutubong komunidad dahil napakalaki po ng budget na inilaan dito at inilahad namin ang epekto nito sa amin bilang mga katutubo na naepektuhan mismo. Negatibo po ang epekto sa aming mga komunidad, no? Direktang karanasan namin 'yan. Napaparalisa ang aming ekonomiya at kabuhayan, no? Hindi kami makapunta sa aming sakahan, maliban lang kung humihingi kami ng pahintulot sa mga sundalo sa bawat galaw namin. At madalas ito'y magdudulot sa pananakot, pandarahas, pamamaslang. Sana ang bilyon-bilyong budget na ibuhos sa pagmilitarisa sa mga katutubong komunidad ay pumunta na lamang doon sa pagtugon sa pandemya at ayuda. Kasi bilang taxpayer din, no, hindi po namin maiwasan na masasabi namin na kung ganito palagi ang epekto sa amin, itong mga ililalaan natin ng budget sa mga D&D, na hindi po kami kadalawang isip na sasabihin na huwag pahintulutan ang mga budget na ito dahil nakikita namin na kami ang direktang biktima nito. Kasi hindi po kinikilala yung aming pagsisikap na matutugunan namin ang aming patayang pangangailangan. Kaya ang panawagan namin dito, Mr. Chair, na itigil yung pag-ukupa sa aming mga komunidad at igalang talaga yung aming karapatan sa sariling pagpapasya dahil po, Mr. Chair, yung aming pinaglalaban po sa pagdepensa ng aming lupang inono ay hindi naman namin yan tinatago. Palagi naman namin yung binabahagi sa publiko. Kaya ito po panawagan namin na talagang igalang ang aming karapatan sa sariling pagpapasya, Mr. Chair. Wala na po akong ibang tanong. Ito lang ang sinasabi ko. At maraming salamat, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Maraming salamat po, Representative Euphemia Kulyamat. Next, the Chair would like to recognize Representative Geraldine Rohmann.
Maraming salamat po, Mr. Chair. Magandang hapon po muli sa ating
Yes,
lahat.
please proceed. You have 3 minutes, Congresswoman Rohmann.
Maraming salamat po. Nais ko po sanang tanungin ang ating PIVAW Administrator, si General Nesty Carolina. Kumari po, Mr. Chair.
Representative Rohmann, kanino?
General Nesty Carolina, PIVAW Administrator.
Okay. Is General Carolina of the Veterans Association present in the Zoom meeting?
Yes, Your Honor, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, good to hear you, General Carolina. Representative Rohmann, please proceed now.
Maraming salamat, Mr. Chair. Sa aming committee po ng Veterans Affairs ng Mababang Kapulungan ay napag-uusapan po natin ang problema ng mga veterano to access healthcare. Kasi hindi naman po lahat ng veterano ay nakatira sa Maynila, pagkus sa iba't ibang bahagi ng ating bansa. At nakapagpasa naman po tayo ng mga panukalang batas para sa pagpapatayo ng ospital, kaya nga lang hindi na-aprobahan dahil sa funding requirements. Maikwento po sana sa atin na Mr. Chair ni General Carolina, ano po ang napagkayarian natin ng mga hakbang ginawa po ng pamahalaan upang matugunan ang suliraning ito. Salamat po, Mr. Chair.
Salamat po.
Yes, Yusek Carolina, you may respond now.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Para mabilis ko pong masagot yung tanong, please allow me to share one or two of our charts, Mr. Chairman. Tama po ang sabi ng ating chairperson ng House Committee on Veterans Affairs. Iisa lang po ang ating Veterans Hospital. Nandun po sa Quezon City. And it is able to cater only to about 30% of our veterans population. Dahil po ang mga veterano natin all over the country. Nandun po sila sa Northern Luzon, sa Visayas at sa Mindanao. Kaya ang ginawa po natin na remedyo in the last 4 years, nagkaroon po tayo ng Veterans Hospitalization and Medical Care Program. Para yung pong mga veterano, lalo na yung war veterans na nasa Visayas at Mindanao, ay hindi na po kailangan pumunta sa Veterans Hospital. Pwede po silang magpagamot sa government accredited hospital sa kinalalagyan po nila. Ngayon po, nagkaroon na po ng budget po yon sa tulong ng Kongreso. At nag-upisa sa 10 million. In fiscal year 2020, 155 million na po. At ang panawagan po namin ay ibalik po sana yung tinanggal dito sa aming proposal dahil binawasan po ng 55 million, kaya bumalik sa 100 million, yung 155. At hindi po isinama yung additional na 45 million, Mr. Chairman, para maging 205 million po. Bilang preparasyon sa ating programa na by the end of the term of President Duterte by 2022, 300 million po ang ating target na nakaprograma po para po ating ma-declare na no veteran pays for his or her own medicine. Nakaisa po tayo sa mga nakaraang hearing na tama lamang po yun na hindi dapat magbayad ng gamot yung ating pong mga war veterans. Kaya pinapakita ko po rito sa aming chart, 105 million po yung natanggal at 55 or 56 million yung para sa atin pong veterans ward at para po sa equipment. Doon sa, pakita mo yung next chart. Para po sa equipment ng veterans ward na na-approve na po, Mr. Chan. Ito po, 105 million po para doon sa reimbursement program. Ito po ay napaka-cheap na alternative po sa panukalang batas na inihain po in the previous Congress na magtayo ng additional veterans hospital sa Visayas at saka Mindanao. 2.3 billion po ang cost ng isang tertiary hospital na 250 bed. So, ang sabi po ng Secretary of Health, sayang ang pera dahil hindi nila malagyan ng nurses at doctors yung existing hospital. Yung po sinabi sa amin ng diretsyo ng DOH Secretary sa amin dalawa ni Secretary Lorenzana. Kaya sabi, ganito na lang ang gawin. Mag-accredit ang mga hospital, maglagay ng veterans ward dun sa mga lugar na maraming veterano, at bayaran na lang po natin yung kanilang hospital bills. Palagay po namin ay that is a more viable alternative. Kaya po, to cut the story short, nananawagan po kami, maibalik man lamang po yung existing na programa na. Ito po, 175 million. Yung 20 million po dyan, for example, na-approve po sa budget ng 2020, 2 ward. Tapos na po, yung isa nasa Northern Mindanao Medical Center sa Cagayan de Oro, yung isa sa Southern Mindanao Medical Center sa Davao. So matatapos na po ngayong October, ito pong 20 million, 10 million sila para sa equipment. So sayang po yung veterans ward kung hindi po natin pupundahan itong 20 million. At yung 50 million naman po, yun po yung nakaprogram sa 2021 na 3 veteran ward. Isa sa Soto Hospital sa Cebu, isa po sa Dagupan City, at yung isa po ay sa Batangas City. Next chart. Meron din pong natanggal na programa para po sa ating mga shrine. Ang tawag po namin dito, Mr. Chairman, Love for Country Infrastructure. Kasi po, mahirap po kumuha ng pera pagka hindi para sa mga dam, bridges, MRT. Pero nakakalimutan po natin itong tinatawag namin na Love for Country Infrastructure. Ito pong mga shrine, mga war memorial, na pag pumunta po tayo sa ibang bansa, talaga pong napakagaganda. Dinadala yung mga bata, yung mga citizen, para po makakaroon sila ng sense of pride at pagmamahal sa bayan. So ito pong natanggal na ito, ongoing na, ay 56 million lang naman po. Para po sa, for example, yung Baliti Pass National Shrine sa Nueva Vizcaya, napakalaki po ng papel niya sa end of World War II. Marami po namatay na Pilipino dyan. Nagpasa po tayo ng batas. Ito po naging national shrine, pero hindi pa po natin naumpisang i-develop. So itong 16 million, mga basic features lang po ito ng military shrine. Gaya po ng historical wall, visitor sa view deck, etc. etc. 16 million na po initial improvement. Ganon din po sa Kiangan National Shrine, meron po tayong shrine doon. Kasi doon po nahuli si Yamashita at doon po natapos ang World War II. Pero napapabayaan din po natin. At ganoon din po yung sa PIPNL National Shrine sa La Union. So, 56 million po para dito sa tinatawag nating Love for Country Infrastructure. At ito pong last chart ko po ay
Yusek, last chart.
Po,
okay, please
proceed. Veteran support. Gaya po ng pang-COVID-19 natin to protect our veterans in the field. At saka magko-construct po tayo ng field service office sa Cordillera po. Kasi kawawa po yung mga katutubo natin, sa Cordillera, Abra, yung paligid ng Baguio. Panahon na po na makaroon po tayo ng ating outreach sa field office po doon. Thank you po, Mr. Chairman. A total of 247 million pesos lang po na ongoing program na po na nananawagan ng mga veterano maibalik kasi essential po ito. 1.1 billion po yan sa budget proposal namin, na trim down sa 617, natanggal po lahat. Ito lang po ang itinadasal, hinihiling po namin para sa mga veterano, 247 million po na sana maisama sa General Appropriations Act Bill ng 2021. Maraming salamat po, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Yusek Carolina. Do you still have, Representative Rohmann, do you still have a question?
Just wrap up, Mr. Chair.
Please proceed to wrap up.
Salamat po. Napakinggan po natin ang pahayag at ang reporting po na ginawa ng PIBAW administrator natin. So, sa ngalan po ng Committee ng Veterans Affairs at bilang kasapi na rin po ng Committee on Appropriations, I strongly urge all the members of our committee na bigay na ito. These are ongoing programs and concern the health, yung maintenance and ng ating mga historical shrines, as well as yung operations po ng ating PIBAW office. Mahalaga po ito. This is just 247 million. Gawin na natin pong 250 million kung maaari po. Maraming salamat po, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Representative Geraldine Rohmann. Next, the Chair would like to recognize from the minority, Representative Ferdi Gaite.
Maraming salamat po, Mr. Chair. Muli, follow-up ito sa aking unang katanungan. Mr. Chair, tinanong ko kanina hinggil sa violations ng mga karapatan ng mga manggagawa sa malayang pag-organisa ng AFP, at sinabi ni Secretary Lozano kanina ay hindi sangkot ang AFP sa mga violations na ito, despite yung claims ng in at least 5 cases recently, yung sa Musahamat Farm Workers Labor Union, sa Pilipinas Palm Oil Plantation Workers Union, sa United Workers of Mindanao Agriculture at Coca-Cola at sa Alcofil, sinabi po ni Secretary Lorenzana na hindi sangkot ang AFP. May ginawa bang investigasyon ang AFP and DND patungkol dito sa violations ng kanilang mga batalyon na nasangkot supposedly, allegedly, dito sa mga nabanggit na issues, Mr. Chair?
Secretary Lorenzana.
Mr. Chairman, wala po kami natatanggap mga complaints dyan. Kung makatanggap po kami, ay gagawan namin ng masusing investigasyon. Kung pwede po sana mag-sumiti sa amin ng report, details ng alleged violation, and we will conduct a thorough and speedy investigation, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chair.
Representative Gaite.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Can we get that commitment? Kapag may submit ito, ay gano'ng katagal bago makakuha kami ng substantial na results ng investigation? Baka naman na pagkatapos na naman itong hearing na ito, kahit may submit na, ay tulad ng maraming reklamo ng mga manggagawa, ay matutulog lamang ang mga sinabing investigasyon, Mr. Chair.
Secretary?
Mr. Chairman, 1 month pagkatanggap namin ng report o complaint, ay magsasumiti kami ng result ng investigation.
Representative Gaite. Congressman Gaite, the Secretary made the commitment.
Salamat po, Mr. Chair. At kami nangangamba dahil dito sa pinakahuling insidente na nabanggit ko sa Alcofil, in relation nito doon sa anti-terror law, na may doon sa reklamo nila, may binabanggit na tinatakot yung mga manggagawa ng naturang ahensya, ng naturang kumpanya, na sila ay maaaring kasuhan dahil sa pag-implementa yung anti-terror law, ay maaari silang masangkot. Ito yung binabanggit na ang AWO Anglo KMU noong Agosto 7, pinakita daw ang isang video na ini-implicate ang Kilusang Mayo 1 bilang isang terroristang organisasyon at sinabi na kapag tuloy-tuloy silang maging bahagi ng KMU ay maaaring violation ito ng anti-terror law. Ito ba'y pinagbabawal ng anti-terror law, Mr. Chair, Mr. Secretary?
Mr. Secretary.
Mr. Chairman, I'm not aware that about this na pinagbabawal ng anti-terrorism law. Palagi namin sinasabi nung mga nakaraang panahon na hindi po saklaw ng normal dissent. Kung mayroong reklamo yung mga tao ay hindi po kasama yan sa saklaw ng terrorism law. So makaasa po sila na we will respect the right of the people to complain or dissent or their dissent against the government.
Representative Gaite.
Yes, Mr. Chair, salamat po sa kasagutan. At talagang nababahala ang mga manggagawa, both public and private sector workers, dahil napaka-aktibo ngayon ng DND, ng AFP, ng PNP, ng NTF-LCAC dito sa tagging at iba pa na mismo sa nabanggit kong guidelines ay mahigpit na ipinagbabawal. And yet, nakuha namin information na ikot ang mga elements ng AFP, PNP at iba pa at naglalabas itong mga ibang nabanggit ko, no, mga knowing the enemy sa workers sa public sector, the public sector study, no, na pinapangalanan yung mga organisasyon o union ng mga manggagawa, both public and private sector workers. At dinideny po ng ating secretary na may kinalaman ang DND, AFP sa ganitong mga programa ng gobyerno, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Representative Gaite. That would be the last question coming from you. You have already consumed your 3 minutes. For the reply, Secretary Lorenzana.
Mr. Chairman, very specific po yung nakasaad sa ating anti-terrorism law kung ano lang yung terrorist acts. Ngayon, hindi po namin tinutolerate kung yung mga allegations na sinasabi na ginagawa ng mga armed forces. Kaya po kung pwede lang ay bigyan tayo ng reports ng mga alleged violation na yan immediately para naman patugunan natin o ma-resolve natin itong mga bagay na to, hindi kaya maparusahan yung mga gumagawa ng katiwalian.
Maraming salamat po, Mr. Chair. Yun lang po. Salamat po sa pagkakataong makapagtanong. Salamat po.
Thank you very much, Representative Gaite. Next, Representative Rufus Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, to just continue again to questions to our Secretary of National Defense. Mr. Chairman, to my question of whether the contract for Dito Telecoms to put up towers, Mr. Chairman, satellite towers in the camp, the good secretary said that to have a fair play and to have a fair treatment, they will be allowed in our military camps because they have allowed companies like Globe and Smart. Let me just emphasize that there's no problem with Globe and Smart being in our camps because these are wholly owned Filipino companies. But Dito Telecom is 40% owned by the Chinese. Can you imagine that there will be Chinese allegedly employees of Dito who may be spies for China, where we have a conflict, especially on the West Philippine Sea, entering our camps and being able to secure very, what's this? Those that are installations that should not be known by outside forces. So once again, may I ask the Secretary if he would review that and make sure that we will not be compromised at all by refusing to allow Dito Communication, because of its Chinese ownership of 40%, to come and establish cell sites in our camps. So may we ask again the Secretary if he can review this particular contract, because they're about to. The question is, have you signed the contract, Secretary?
Secretary Lorenzana.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I signed the contract recently because last year, when the contract reached my table, the Senate also asked a copy of the contract for them to scrutinize. They came out with nothing naman, wala silang complaint about or any recommendation on the contract. It was returned to us, and the AFP assured me that they will institute safeguards so that the security of our camps will be maintained, Mr. Chairman.
Well, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Congressman Rodriguez.
Well, the fact that the Senate did not act on this, I would like to remind the Secretary that during the budget hearing last year, I brought this out already and have already warned the DND and the armed forces that this will be a lot of problem. There will be really national security issues if this will continue. It's just sad that the Secretary already signed this, and so we will, this is not the step in the right direction. So may I go now again to my question on the companies blacklisted by the United States, and because they work on the military installations of China on features in the West Philippine Sea, and the Secretary said that he is not he is not for blacklisting. He is urging that the government should screen the companies so that it will not endanger our national security. But like to ask the Secretary, clearly these particular companies had already constructed facilities contrary to the national interest of our country, constructing in violation of the international law on waters, the UNCLOS, by putting artificial islands on just reefs, which are not supposed to be destroyed environmentally, especially for military installations. And these military installations are facing the Philippines squarely now. And is it not that if the United States, which has no claim on the West Philippine Sea, except for international
Congressman Rodriguez.
Yes.
You have consumed your 3 minutes. Can you wrap up your manifestation or make your final question?
So my question is, can the Secretary consider that since the department is the one in charge of our sovereignty and our national security, that certainly he should be able to ask the national government not to allow to blacklist these contractors so that they will not have any business with us, because after all, they are responsible for building these facilities against Philippine interests. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we like to hear the good Secretary.
Secretary Lorenzana.
Mr. Chairman, these companies were blacklisted by the United States. And bakit natin hinintay yung US na blacklist sila kung ayaw natin sa kanila? Why did we not blacklist them in the first place para hindi na sila makapag-ano sa atin? But we did not do that. And they won fair and square biddings to construct the Sangli Airport. And ang pagkakaintindi ko dyan, mukhang ano na yung kontrata. And if we will get out of the contract, granting that the contract has been signed, then we will be slapped with a huge damage. But as I said a while ago, Mr. Chairman, we are going to exercise due diligence in screening the people coming in so that our security will not be compromised. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Representative Rufus Rodriguez. Thank you very much also, Secretary Delphine Lorenzana. Before I turn over the chair back to the chairman, there is just one query from this representation which I would like to make. It caught my attention earlier. The Chief of Staff of the Armed Forces of the Philippines made a statement regarding international terrorists sneaking in through the back door. And this representation from the city of Zamboanga City has reservation. And this is with regards to the influx or the continued coming in of stateless individuals, which makes the port of Zamboanga as their entry point. So I would like to ask the Secretary of National Defense, Secretary Delphine Lorenzana, for his sense on this issue wherein stateless individuals who do not have relatives in the Philippines, wala pong kamag-anak sa Basilan, walang kamag-anak sa Sulu, walang kamag-anak sa Tawi-Tawi, Zamboanga, or even Ilocos, or even in Bulacan, or wherever, are entering our country. It makes me uncomfortable to know that these people who does not have any record in the Philippines, walang record sa PSA, walang passport, hindi pinanganak sa Pilipinas, does not belong to any country, are coming in through the southern back door to the city of Zamboanga. So probably I will just, instead of a reply, I would just rather have a written na lang po, a written position of the Department of National Defense, the Secretary, to my query on your position on the entry of these stateless individuals through the southern back door through the city of Zamboanga. Please furnish paki-furnish na lang po in writing your position or the sense of the Department of National Defense with regards to these stateless individuals entering through the southern back door.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'll do that.
Maraming salamat po. Thank you very much, Mr. Secretary. And tuloy na daw. Tapusin na. Next, the chair would like to recognize Representative Sara Elago.
Maraming salamat, Ginoong Chair. More on digital and social media operations of the DND. For the record, we have already filed complaints on state-sponsored disinformation before the NBI Anti-Cybercrime since August 2019. Wala pa pong nananagot, ngunit ang ilan ay meron ng initial findings. Kaya po nakakagalit na wala man lang gagawin rito ang DND no habang malawakan ang paglabag sa karapatang pantao at pamamaslang na binubunga ng state-sponsored disinformation na tulad na lamang ng pagpaslang sa aktivista at health worker na si Sara Alvarez na nakaranas rin po ng matinding labeling at targeting. Mr. Chair, alam po ba ng DND Secretary sino ang nag-aresto at nagpakulong sa kanya ng halos na 2 taon? Siya po ay kinasuhan ng gawa-gawang kaso at inilayo sa kanyang 2 taon na anak noong taong 2012.
Secretary Lorenzana.
Mr. Chairman, I will investigate. I'm sorry, I do not know the details of this arrest.
Representative Sara.
Yes, Mr. Chair, ayon po sa aming pananaliksik, Armed Forces of the Philippines, Joint Forces po ang nag-aresto at nagkaso sa kanya. No, kaya nababahala rin kami na si Sara Alvarez po ay nasama rin kasi doon sa unang petisyon ng DOJ no, para sa prescription na may 649 na mga pangalan. Ngunit ang pangalan niya ay tinanggal rin dahil hindi naman ito vetted. Hindi po ba AFP ang pinanggalingan ng unang listahan na ito na pinagbatayan ng DOJ, Ginoong Chair?
Secretary Lorenzana.
Mr. Chair, dalawa po ang pinanggalingan yan, yung PNP at saka AFP.
Representative Elago.
Ayon nga sa DOJ Secretary noong 2018 budget hearing nanggaling sa intelligence reports ng AFP at ng PNP ang naging listahan. Dagdag pa, Ginoong Chair, dalawang buwan bago maisama si Sara Alvarez sa unang listahan ng DOJ prescription, ang pangalan at larawan niya ay nailagay sa mga posters na nilagay po sa Negros kung saan siya ay natagurian bilang personahe ng insurgency. Hindi po ba ito deliberate na pag-inflict na ng injury sa kanyang personahe? At mukha pong hindi naman incidental lamang ang pagpaslang sa kanya dahil dun sa dami na ng mga human rights defenders, nasa 13 na po yan. At kung mula sa taon na 2015, umabot na po sa 251 na mga human rights defender na nanggaling sa iba't ibang sektor, mula po sa mga peasants, agrarian reform beneficiaries, workers, maski po mga lawyers, na katulad ni Attorney Ben Ramos ay nakaranas din ng mga tagging at labeling ng katulad ni Zara Alvarez bago po siya paslangin. Ano-ano na po ang mga hakbang na ginagawa ng AFP tungkol sa mga kaso na ito?
Before I let the Armed Forces of the Philippines reply to the query, I would like to remind Representative Sara Elago that she has already consumed her 3 minutes. The Chief of Staff of the Armed Forces of the Philippines, you may already respond to the query of Representative Sara Elago.
Yes, Mr. Chair, Your Honor. Good afternoon again. The Armed Forces of the Philippines hasn't received any reports on this alleged violations, Mr. Chair, Your Honor. And as soon as we have received, we will take cognizance and implement swift actions on this. We will investigate the matter to the fullest because that is not how the AFP operates, Your Honor, Mr. Chair. Using our use of the social media is also part and parcel of our job through our civil relations service and other similar units in the different major services. And our actions, what we post, what we upload, are within the bounds of the law, and we do not we are not into practice of uploading fake news or any disinformation, but rather we just report what our actions truthfully. And that is why, Mr. Chair, Your Honor, the Armed Forces of the Philippines has been awarded the #1 trust rating among 15 government agencies and institutions recently by True Survey. So, meaning the people believes in what we upload and what we tell them. We told them this is how we address, this is how we support national and local efforts in addressing the pandemic as well as in combating terrorism. And that is, Mr. Chair, Your Honor, was the basis why we were adjudged as the #1 most trusted government agency recently in a survey. So it is through social media, Your Honor, Mr. Chair.
Thank you
Mr.
very
Chair,
much.
dapat yan imbestigahan dahil yung mga banta po na natanggap ni Zara, kaya po siya nagpunta sa korte ay nanggaling din po sa military. Kaya po, ang red tagging, ang terror labeling ay hindi to biro. Ito ay may direktang binubungan na murder. Kaya kailangan po dito managot ng AFP mag-imbestiga sa mga pagkamatay ng mga human rights defenders. Hustisya para kay Zara Alvarez.
Okay. Your time is up, Representative Sara Elago. The Chair would recognize next Representative Arlene Brosas. Representative Arlene Brosas. The chair would like to call again Representative Arlene Brosas. One last call. Representative Arlene Brosas. Okay. I think that is the last interpellator.
Mr. Chair.
I'd like to turn over the chair to Representative Jonathan C. Alvarado.
Chair, may I be recognized?
Thank you, Congressman Chairman Manix. Sa atin po mga kasama, ilang katanungan po para sa DND. At ito pong mga katanungan na to ay galing po sa aming mga kasama dito sa Kamara Representante na hindi po available ngayong araw na ito. Ang sabi po sa atin, at ito po'y nasa wikang English, pero pilitin kong ilipat sa salitang Filipino. Maaari daw po ba tayong bumili ng mga equipment o mga kagamitan kagaya ng fire trucks, aircraft para sa relief operation at gamit sa kalamidad, gamit ang calamity fund? DND?
Mr. Chairman, nakaano kasi yung specific kasi yung pwedeng paggamitan ng calamity fund. Sa katunayan po, kailangan connected dyan sa kalamidad. Ang numero 1 ng requirements ng calamity fund ay nagkaroon ng kalamidad. So, kaya ang reklamo po ng mga ating mga mamamayan o mga LGUs ay imbis na gawin nila yung repairs ng mga bridges, saka ano pa ay hindi nila magawa dahil hindi nagagamit yan nagagamit yung calamity fund. Pero sangayon po ako, Mr. Chairman, na yung mga calamity fund na yan ay dapat magamit sa proactive para pag dumating yung kalamidad ay maiwasan yung malaking distraction o paninira ng mga properties at ano pang madaanan ng bagyo. So, sangayon po ako, Mr. Chairman, na gamitin yon sa fire trucks, saka mga ibang equipment pa.
Maaring gamitin po.
Oo.
Maraming salamat po. Basahin ko rin po sa inyo para sa kaliwanagan ng lahat. Under Section 21 ng Republic Act 10-121, that the 5% of the estimated revenue from regular sources shall be set aside as LDRRMF to support disaster risk management activities such as purchasing life-saving rescue equipment, supplies, and medicine, for post-disaster activities, and for the payment of premiums on calamity insurance. Kaya tama po yung sinabi ni Secretary Lorenzana na maaari natin gamitin. At pangalawa po, DND, pinatatanong rin po ng ating mga kasama na kinatawan na kung daw po ba maaaring gamitin yung calamity fund, pagbili ng mga gamit katulad po nung nauna ko nang nabanggit, ibig sabihin daw po ba, ito ay mapapasaloob sa inventory ng DND, DILG, o saan ba talagang ahensya dapat ito mapapasok? DND?
Mr. Chairman, kung ito po ay ang pondo ay galing sa OCD o NDRRMC, ay yung pang equipment na yan ay mapupunta sa libro ng OCD. Ngayon po, yung OCD naman ay meron siyang mga regional offices all over the country. So yung mga gamit na yan ay pwede naman nilang ipamigay sa mga regional offices at magagamit po ng mga LGUs.
Maraming salamat po. Total po nabanggit ni Secretary Lorenzana yung OCD. Ito po yung pangatlong katanungan pero ito po'y grupo. Sa pangatlong katanungan ay meron pong 4 na katanungan. Sa nakaraang 3 taon po, Mr. Secretary, gaano na po yung ginastos ng ating gobyerno sa OCD para sa calamity response sa mga non-food pack assistance? DND?
Mr. Chairman, wala po sa akin yung mga detail na yan. Mag-submitin po kami sa inyo. We'll submit the report.
Sige po. Kasama na rin po ng pag-submitin nyo, Mr. Secretary, ay yung katanungan, meron daw po bang nabili na equipment sa panahon na yon? Sa nakaraang 3 taon?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I will include that
Mr.
in the
Chairman
report.
po, sir. Opo.
Mr. Chairman.
Baka nakapingka ko kasi, sir, napagkamalan mo tuloy akong ano. Ang susunod na katanungan na Mr. Secretary, meron daw po bang equipment na nirerentahan ang DND?
Mr. Chairman, wala po. Sa pagkakalam ko, wala kami nirerentahang equipment na ginagamit sa mga kalamidad.
Kung maaari po ay pwede po ba tayong magsumite ng datos para po makasigurado tayong wala tayong nirerentahan? Mr. Secretary.
We will do that, Mr. Chairman.
The committee secretary is hereby directed to secure the documents from the Department of National Defense. At kasama po sa pangatlong katanungan ay ano daw po ba ang mas cost-effective, yung bumili o magrenta?
Depende po, Mr. Chairman. May mga gamit po na mas madali o mas maganda kung rentahan natin, lalo na kung ang gamit ng mga equipment na yan ay panandalian lang. Pero po pag kailangan natin yung equipment na yan ng pangmatagalan, ay mas maganda pong bumili tayo.
Maraming salamat, Mr. Secretary. And with that, tapos na po ang ating listahan. Okay.
Just one
yes,
document request,
Vice Chairman
Mr. Chairman, just request the Department of National Defense to submit to the Committee on Appropriations a report on the specific latest incursions, provocative or not, of foreign military vessels, ships in our territorial waters, and the actions taken by the government. Military ships or vessels, whether it is China or other countries, in our territorial waters, and actions taken by the government. Please submit to the Committee on Appropriation, Mr. Secretary, the request by some members of the committee.
Mr. Secretary, maaari po ba nating maisumite ang kahilingan pong ito?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Kami po ay magko-comply sa request na yan.
The Committee Secretary is hereby directed to do so.
Furnish Representative Sarate of that report. Thank you very much.
Pamibigyan po natin lahat ng ating mga miyembro, lalong-lalo na ang ating kaibigan, Kaloy Sarate. At kagaya po ng sinabi ko, wala na pong nakalista na nais pang magtanong. Yes, our favorite motion.
Mr. Chairman, considering that we have already exhausted and finished all the interpellators list for first and second round, I move to terminate the budget briefing of the Department of National Defense together with the Armed Forces of the Philippines and all attached agencies with DND.
There is a pending motion. Meron pong motion.
Second the motion.
Duly seconded ng ilang beses. Hearing no objections, ang atin pong briefing ngayong araw na ito, kaugnay sa Department of National Defense na tunay naman pinapasalamatan po natin ang ating mga miyembro, lalong-lalo na po ang ating mga imbitadong guest, is hereby terminated.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.